Welcome to Dawn of a Story. This is more than a podcast. It's a place where we speak the truth, tell the stories that shape us, and honor the moments that made us who we are. I created the space because I believe storytelling is how we connect, how we heal, and how we remember who we are. Some stories are still being written. Some are full of laughter. Some have changed everything, but all of them matter. Whether it's my story or one of my guests, my hope is that you hear something that resonates, that reminds you that you are not alone and encourages you to tell your story too. So settle in because every story starts somewhere, and this one starts now. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to Dawn of a Story. I'm your host, Dawn Pascal. I'm so very grateful you decided to spend your time with me and my guest this week, Ady Dorsett. Every show, we will be exploring a new theme, and this week's theme is the story love built. Some stories begin in heartbreak, but through love, they grow into something larger than we've ever imagined. Today's conversation is about resilience, community, and the healing power of love, the kind of love that builds new beginnings even after loss. So let me tell you a little about my guest. Ady Dorsett is the founder and CEO of Hayden's House of Healing, a nonprofit retreat center dedicated to supporting bereaved parents and families after the loss of a child. Inspired by her own journey of loss, she created Hayden's House as a place of love, community, and healing. Through her leadership, the organization provides compassionate retreats and resources that remind grieving families that they are not alone. So, without further ado, let's get started. Hey, Ady, so good to see
Hey,
you.
how are you? Good to see
Yes.
you. Thanks for
Oh
having
my
me.
God, I'm so excited you're here. I know it's been a hot minute since we've seen each other. So it's wonderful to
Mm-hmm.
see you. Thank you.
Me
So
too.
our viewers and listeners don't really know our backstory. We met several years ago when we did our first ever fundraiser, which was my sister Susan's first Zumbathon ever. And I remember that it was filled with so many friends, obviously family, and there was just so much love in the room, like so much love in the room for Hayden and for you and
Mhm.
Rob. So
Mhm.
let's go back there. I know that that was the beginning of the journey and Hayden's medical issues, and I know he was in CHOP at the time, right, in Pennsylvania.
Yes.
So
hmm
how did it all start?
So Hayden is our second born son, and he was pre-diagnosed with a heart defect called hypoplastic left heart syndrome, which basically means the left side of his heart wasn't going to fully develop in utero. So we found that out in November of 2011. He was born in March 2012. And he was born at CHOP, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. He, though, had the half of a heart. His prognosis was good. There was 3 different surgery steps that they would take, and so he was going to be in the hospital in and out for several months, and then ideally they would reconstruct his heart, and he would thrive with the medical procedures that were taking place for him. During that time, we had a lot of support, a lot of family and friends who did fundraisers for us and, brought meals to the house. And it was just, we felt incredibly surrounded by so much love and just, in general, like in the thick of it,
Right.
support from everyone. And that's really what carried us through a lot of that time of our lives. He did have his first surgery when he was 4 days
Mm.
old. We came home 3 weeks after that. He was home for a little over a week, caught us mild bug, but for children with medical complexities, it was more than mild for him. Back in the hospital for about a month. I think that's when we initially had met. And then he was home for a little while, back in and out. And then ultimately, he had his second surgery in August. After that surgery, he went back in for mild complications with feeding. He was going to get a what they call G tube. So he used to feed by
Mhm.
mouth, by nose. He couldn't feed by mouth very well, and then ultimately a G tube to go into his stomach. After that surgery, experienced some issues that were unexpected, but were hopeful to
Turn around.
be a smooth
Right,
transition
right.
through. Yeah, and ultimately he ended up a medical error occurred while he was inpatient through that recovery that ended up taking his life, August 16th, 2012.
I oh,
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry. I didn't really.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thinking back and hearing your story again just sort of brings back the whole flood of emotion because we were there.
Yeah.
At the service for him. And never in a million years did we think, right? He had gone through so many
No.
layers and so many levels and so many,
Um,
surgeries to then not be here. And I distinctly remember his face. And we actually even still have some of the stuff that we posted for the Zumbathon back then. And, it's just something that's kind of ingrained in you. And it
yes.
reminds me of just, I don't know if anybody really knows this, and not many people do, but there was a sister born between me and Susan, and she was
Okay.
born about, almost less than 2 years after Susan was born, and she lived for 3 months, and then she died, and her name was
Mm,
Regina, and then I was
mm.
born, probably about a year and a half later at that point, and, um, not to get sort of too much into the mix of it because I wanna start to talk about Hayden's House of Healing and what it provides. I will just say this, my parents never talked about it,
Okay.
which is something that hung over us our entire childhood and
Yeah.
lives and was a very sensitive topic. So let's talk about Hayden's House of Healing and why it was created and
Okay.
what it provides for those families.
Well, that's actually a really good segue because I feel like that's very generational, to not have
Right,
talked about it. And I think that it was taboo. It didn't if it didn't happen, it didn't happen often, and even if it did, no one
right,
talked about it. No one could understand the depth of that pain of child loss unless you've gone through it. And so, I can speak on my behalf, but I'm sure lots of other bereaved parents that you don't really want to put someone in an awkward position either. When someone asks me, how many kids do you have? Or
right,
they learn about my loss, they are taken and they are emotional, right? And it's a hard topic. And so, there's a lot of I don't know, there's just a lot of pain that comes with it that people don't want to put on other
right.
people or don't even know how to voice it or word it. There's a lot of isolation, but I do feel that that is very generational, and there's a lot of people that have said that are, in our age range that'll say, "Well, we had a sibling that passed, but no one talked about it." It was not forgotten, of course, but it was just too hard to scratch on the surface. So, that actually is a complete segue into why Hayden's House is so
Mhm.
important. So, Hayden passed away in August. I had never known of anyone my age that had lost a child. When I was growing up, I remember two kids in particular that were within the age range of like 6 and 18. I don't remember exactly how old they were, but they had passed. And I remember going to a funeral for one of them with my parents. And I was thinking the mom, when I went through, I was a friend of this child. When I went through, was, so, how are you?
Right,
How are you doing? I'm like, how am I doing? Like, why are you asking how I'm doing? It's just too painful. So it's almost like distract, like, let's talk about your
right.
life. So anyways, all that to say, I didn't know anyone my age that had lost a child. I felt very alone, very isolated, but to the point I had so much support, my family, I had great friends, outward support. So I wasn't
Mhm.
alone, but I felt it,
Sure.
So Hayden passed in August, and we immediately started Hayden's Heart, which is his first
Mhm.
nonprofit that supported other heart families going through what we went through. It was his first legacy. It was a way for me to honor him, keep me busy. I'm the person that needs distraction. I can't, I have to put my energy
Somewhere.
somewhere. So we started Hayden's Heart, supported families who had heart warriors, did grants for them, care packages, and that felt very good. That felt fulfilling. That felt useful. Felt like I was doing Hayden
Mhm.
proud in that. That went on for, I would say, like 3 years. Um, it still is going on, but in the initial steps, it went on for like 3 years. And I just still felt like, I felt like there was a piece missing. I felt like this was really great, but I felt like I wasn't fully fulfilled in what I was called to do for him
Right.
yet. And I remember nursing. So after Hayden, we then had Hudson, and then we had
Mhm.
Grayson. And so Grayson was literally nursing. Like, he was so little. He was a newborn. I was on the couch and I was just feeling like all the feels after having a baby, after a loss of a baby is a very different experience. And nursing him and just thinking like, well, I'm so in love with this baby, but I'm still in such crazy
Right.
grief. And that's that is so apparent in my life. Um, I was like, I just want to. There's got to be more moms out there like me. There's got to be something. There's got to be a retreat. I need to meet moms that know this
Right.
pain. So I went online. I'm literally nursing. I'm Googling online, trying to find something on my phone. And I found a bereaved mom retreat. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Digging, 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 find out that it not only was last week, the week before, but it was in Canada.
Oh.
And I was like, well, that's two strikes because I have a newborn. I'm not driving to
Right. Right.
Canada. And it happened last week. So it's over. So I was like, ugh. And then I found out she did it annually. And I was like, okay, maybe I can make next year work. And so a couple days go by and it just started festering in my brain like a retreat. I need to find this. I need to find, and I started looking more and more. Couldn't find anything that fit my bill. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just start one. I was already on a Facebook platform, by the way, private group for mothers who had lost
Mhm.
children to a heart
Okay.
defect. So I already knew a bunch of people in a network of my type of loss. So after that bug started getting in my ear, I started contacting a couple people that I had become closer with through my loss. And basically just said, listen, this was in like July, I would say. I was like, I really want to host a retreat through Hayden's Heart. Um, would you like to do this with me? And a couple of them were like, maybe. And one of them was like, yeah, I'll do it. So I was like, I grabbed on the one that said yes. Her name's Sabrina. She still is the president of Hayden's House of Healing
Wow.
today. And she was like, I'll do this. And I was like, okay. And I said, I'm thinking October. I'll never forget this. We're very different people, very different personalities. And she's, very high up in her, business world. And I'm like, just, not just, but as a teacher and stay at home mom. And I was like, "All right, I'm thinking October." And she was the following year. I was like, "No,"
Like
in like,
now.
8
Right.
weeks.
Right.
Yeah, like
Right.
now. She was like, "Oh, that's way too soon to do a retreat." And I was like, "Well, I'm doing it. You're with her without me. Like with or without you,
Right.
I'm doing it. I would love to have you with me, but it's happening." She's like, "It's going to take so long to get it together." And I was like, "I'm doing it. So you tell me." And she was like, "All right, sign me up." So the two of us worked for 8 weeks.
Wow.
We started putting it out there on the Facebook group that we're both a part of. And in October, or the first weekend in October, we hosted our very first Healing of the Heart retreat
Wow.
for 25 bereaved moms from all over the country. They had all lost a child to a heart
Oh,
defect. So we gathered in somewhere in the Poconos and had a 3-day event together. Met a lot of women who had lost children due to same defect, and walked out of there on that Sunday and was forever changed. Just gets me so emotional. It's so not what I
mhm.
expected. People will say about why I did it. And I was like, I did it for me. I did it for selfish reasons. I needed to find people that knew the depths of the pain that I was
Sure.
in. Um, that I needed a community, which is
Mhm.
what I think this whole world is about, is finding a community in every season of life. And so we did that retreat. I mean, it was more tears than I thought possible, but there was laughter, there was smiles, there was
Right.
connection, community was formed. We, closed out and just felt like
Right.
family. It was
I
bizarre,
bet.
actually. It was so unexpected. And so we left there promising to keep in touch, and we did. And unfortunately, just a couple weeks after that retreat, one of the moms that attended the retreat had a rainbow, which is the baby born after a loss, is what they call rainbow. She had a rainbow that was similar to my Grayson's age at that point, so 3 months old, had tragically passed
Oh.
away unexpectedly, horrifically, and she lived in Texas, and she leaned on us, her community at that point. I was like, "What? We'll do whatever you want. What do you need?" And she was like, "I need you here." So about 4 or 5 of us flew down to Texas, spent a week with her, helped her through all of that. And while we were there, we were talking about how grateful we were for this connection, that we met each other when we
Mhm.
did so that we could be there to support her, not only ourselves through the rest of our grief journeys, but her in that particular. And we talked about the next retreat at that point. And I was like, I don't know, like, is it all of us again? Do we do a reunion? Like, how does this work? We're making this up as we go. And I was like, I feel like it should be different people. So that all started and then it developed into, yes, different people. And so From that retreat, we created what we call a core team, which is our hosts for the retreat. So 6 of us from that 25 went on to then meet monthly and plan and um, perfect the lesson plans and the itinerary that I had first developed with Sabrina. And we hosted a retreat that was 2015 was that first
Wow.
retreat. We hosted another one in 2016. Before the retreat would even happen, we'd have a wait list filled for the next
Wow.
retreat. That didn't happen for another year, you know? So they're getting all of these people that it's becoming very apparent that this is a call to action. This is something that is so unique, but so
Right.
needed for way too many moms. So we did that with 2016, 17. 2018 was the first year we hosted our 2 retreats in 1 year. And that was when we were like, okay, we actually can form more than one team. We formed a whole new team to do that based off of other moms that had already done the process. And then in 2019, we hosted 3 retreats. And stepping back, I would say 2016, 17 is when we were like, this is more than a once a
Right.
year. This is what we need. This is my calling. This is where I need to put my energy. Hayden's heart was still rocking and doing its thing, but this gave me such purpose that it was such a burning passion desire in me that like this was it, you
Right.
know? And that's when we developed Hayden's House of Healing, the idea of Hayden's House of Healing, which met with our founders of these retreats. And we decided at that point also that this retreat was meant for more. This experience was meant for more than just moms and dads who'd lost a
Mhm.
child to a heart defect. This needed to be everything, everywhere, all kinds of loss. Moms, dads, families, it needed to be, they deserved that. So that's when we decided to develop, okay, let's do more retreats. Let's find a house. I think we need a home because Airbnbs are very
Mhm.
expensive. And also, we had unique needs. Yoga, we wanted to host yoga. We wanted to host specific workshops. We needed a space that was exactly what we needed for those specific
Right.
pieces. And that's really
Yeah.
hard. Plus, it was, at that time, 25 people. Finding an Airbnb that doesn't have bunk beds or doesn't require 2 people to they're not sleeping in the
Right.
same bed,
Right.
So there's a lot of different pieces. And we were like, okay, the house is where it's at. So we did end up closing on a home in 2019. Where in 2020 COVID hit. So, there screwed that up. We intended on 13 retreats. I think we ended up having 5 or 6, which we were grateful for. We expanded it to all loss. We expanded it to father's retreat. Um, Down the road, we expanded to a teen retreat. So there's all these different places that it ended up evolving to. At 1 year, we ended up having, I think, 17 retreats. Thankfully, the space that we had that we purchased required us to have smaller
Okay.
numbers, which was actually neat because we were like, "It have to be 20, 25 people." That's what we knew. But then when we expand into a home, ended up being 10 or 12, I think it was 12 attendees with 3 or 4 hosts. And it was the intimate
Mhm.
experience that we
Mhm.
got. And that was like, wow, this is actually really even better somehow. So that's our backstory. So now we have a healing of the heart retreat that supports moms who've lost a child to any loss. We do a version of that for older loss for parents who've lost 25 and older. We do one for a younger loss, miscarriage, stillbirth. Um, we do a retreat for bereaved dads. That's called Brave. We do a retreat for bereaved moms, but it's centered solely on the loving power of Christ, Jesus Christ. So it's a very spiritual
Mhm.
retreat. We do a couples retreat called Woven, and then we do Eternal, which is a retreat for moms and the surviving teen daughter siblings.
Wow.
So that's our portfolio in a nutshell.
Patty, amazing. Amazing how you turned an unimaginable, unthinkable, horrific loss to something that is just a set of open arms for people to come into and give them a hug. Like that.
Yes. And that's and so many people say that first hug I got from Addie or from Stacy, whoever the lead is, they felt like an immediate like, "Ah,
Yeah.
I'm safe. I'm here and I'm okay. I'm going to be okay. Somehow I'm going to be okay." And that is the gift that, like I said, I started selfishly. I needed this for me and then very quickly learned that this was what God gave me. The passion that he instilled in me was this world is so broken.
Yeah.
Um, it's so much evil, so much broken, so much sadness, so much grief. And this is the way that I'm able to give back to others through my loss. And it is very fulfilling to hold a legacy for Hayden in this
That's
way.
just it's unbelievable. I try to think of a obviously a way of soothing the situation in my own mind, right? And thinking to to have someone leave us at such an early age, you wonder, like, was that their gift? I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the right way of saying it, but was that their mission?
Yeah.
Was that their mission to for you to be able to be at your highest potential and give back to others?
Yeah.
Obviously, after such
And so
horrible
it
loss.
took me a while to get to
I
that
can't
point where I
imagine.
was like, okay, this was Hayden's purpose. Like, I didn't want that to be, I didn't want him to be the sacrificial person to have to, but I know that I do believe it took me a while, but I do believe that this was his purpose. This was, Hayden's purpose. This was God's plan, that this was something that, I'm a type A person. I'm maybe like A minus now with kids and things like that. But like, I used to be a
Right.
teacher. And so I'm very A plus and very organized. And those are my
Yeah.
gifts. And, you know, this is, being able to do this for others is also a gift to me.
So as you've gone through the 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 growth of this and the different iterations and the expansion, what did you find was the hardest part? Like how did you find the strength to sort of continue to move on?
It is through Hayden's loss or through
I mean
this retreat.
everything.
Yeah. So, first of all, the backstory with Hayden, with his loss, the reason I carried on is because I think you saw a boy walking back and forth there. My high schooler just got home from his first
Stop.
day.
That's how
Um,
old he is now?
that's what he's a junior. He's a junior.
Oh man. Well,
Crazy. So he was 3,
yeah.
actually 3.5 when Hayden passed, and it for sure was my reason to move forward when Hayden first passed. Maybe a little bit too much pressure for maybe hopefully he never realized that, but he was my purpose for sure. And then it became these moms and these dads and these families. It's 4 days, the retreats, but it's not just those 4 days. So they come to this retreat, they come in strangers. My favorite part is it's super awkward the first
Sure.
day. They don't know each other. Some people come knowing someone maybe, but not usually. So it's very awkward, and they come in and it's uncomfortable a little bit. We as hosts try really hard to make it not. But the beautiful thing is, they later that night or the next day, or for sure Sunday, they leave there, and the transformation is just the most beautiful. It's why it keeps happening, and we've been through our lumps with this house. We had the home I referenced in 2019. We unfortunately ended up
Oh,
losing. Yes, the town. We didn't know. Uh, we're just making this up as we go along, right? So we didn't know when we purchased the home that we had to have a variance to host
oh.
retreats in a different place, and it's a whole nother story, but we ended up losing the
Mm,
home, unfortunately. And so we've been renting out of Airbnbs again. We're striving very deeply to find another property that we can call home again and be able to host, I mean, 15 to 18 retreats a year. Right now, we're running 5 or 6, depending on financially what we can do, but just taking it back. So we lost the home, but wherever we host it, it's not just those 4 days. Those people leave there as
sure.
family. And some of my very best friends are from the very first retreat, but also then through retreats that I've hosted. So we watch them become family. We become family with them. We call it our tribe. The elephant is our symbol. When an elephant loses their child, if an elephant loses their child, what's beautiful about those creatures is the mother elephants all surround the mother in pain in a circle, and they don't leave her side, but they protect her and allow her to grieve the way that she is intended to grieve and way she feels to wants to grieve. And that's what we do at Hayden's house. There's no judgment. There's no rushing you through it. We just stand there and with you, alongside you, in silence or in tears and laughter, whatever it is that you need. And that's the beauty, is it doesn't stop there. So it's not just those 4 days of transformation. I have had husbands that'll reach out to me and say, "You gave my family a piece of my wife
Oh,
back." To our surviving children, they thought they lost their mom. I have people just send me a card that says, it'll say like, "Thanks for saving my life."
right.
So it's through the pain of losing our establishment, fighting for another one, still fighting to get one, it's what gives me the strength to keep fighting to find our forever home, to keep doing these retreats, to have the annoyance of Airbnbs, to pay all this money because I know the life saving power that this community is, not just that 4 days, but the community that stands throughout has given them.
Wow. Addie, if I was in the room with you, God, I'd be hugging you. Wow. That's just,
And we'd be
yeah,
bawling. Yeah.
of course. Well,
Human touch.
absolutely. Of
Human touch.
course. Yeah. The grief is just unbelievable. I can't even imagine what you went through. And again, I can't even think back and imagine what my mom went through. And the fact that
Yes.
she never talked about it. And anytime my sister
Yes.
and I ever brought it up in a questioning way, she was part of our family. Can we talk about
Right.
her? All we had was a little thumbnail picture, and we were like, who is this? And then you saw the two of their faces, and my father would always go like this, like, no, don't talk about it. And I was like, well, okay, that's really not right, you know. And my mom would just look like a sheet of glass. She, just never. So I can't. So what you're providing for people is absolutely beyond amazing. And I wish that my parents would have spoken about it,
Yes.
even just to me and Susan, even if,
Yes.
even for that they didn't want to go a route of talking to their friends or even talking to their own siblings or even to talking to a medical professional to sort of work through
Yes.
that. So what you have built is just truly, it's remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable.
Thank you. It definitely breaks my heart when I hear about, because that's again the same thing a lot of people have said, and that when people our age had lost siblings, same thing. It's too painful to confront, and so I get that. I get that. But once you find other people, then you feel like, okay, I can talk about. I can say his name and have a
Right.
conversation, and it feels okay, and I can cry, and I'm not offending anybody or upsetting anybody, or and that's just it. I know, like I said, it's generational, but,
Yeah.
that breaks my heart when that's the reality for a lot of people.
So how do you see Hayden's House of Healing growing? Like what do you think is next natural, growth for your organization?
Yeah, I feel like losing the home took us back more steps than I
Okay.
would have liked. And so my goal is to once again have a property, where we are able to host as many retreats as a year as we want and can. I mean, it's a the wait list is deafening. I think we're over 600 right now on our wait
Wow.
list, and that is a really hard number for me to bring to reality because I know what this retreat would do for all of them. So our goal is to essentially have a property
Okay.
again where we can be back to the standard that we wanted to be, which is 15 to 18 retreats a year, and loving on these moms and dads and siblings, and just being the good in this world that we so need right now with just all the grief.
Addie, I'm a firm believer of what you say out loud, the universe hears and gives you. Okay. So there's got to be a reason. You popped into my head. I was having a conversation with Susan. Addie. Oh my God. Addie. Yes. Let's get Addie on the show. So here is a
Mhm.
platform that I am creating that is just an open, truth telling, tear shedding, laugh, whatever you want it to be, platform,
Yep.
community that allows people to tell their story and share it. And my hope is for you and for all of my other guests that have been on already or about to be aired over the next couple of months, that whatever message it is that you're putting out there, that it will be heard and it'll come back to you.
Mhm.
So I, I
I hope
firmly,
that as
yeah,
well.
no, look,
Thank
I firmly believe it. I
you.
base majority of my life on
Yep.
that rule that it works, and it does work.
We
I
get
know it works. I know it works.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
is there is the program a little bit different when you're talking to just parents as opposed to the siblings who have dealt with the loss?
Yes. So all of our programming for each type of retreat is very different. We have lesson plans and a itinerary, a curriculum. It's very intentional. The moms is pretty intense. The moms typically wanna dig. They're ready for it. They're there for a reason. They wanna dig. The dads is a little more airy, I'll say. We will the moms will sit around the couch and tell
Yeah,
all, tears and everything, just sit together, right? The dads will play cornhole and chat with the person standing next to them about their child,
yeah,
it's just the
different,
way we all grieve
different.
differently, and we respect that. The siblings is a little stripped down as well in the sense of not as, go hard as the moms is. But, one of the things that they do, I really, really love. So our Thursday night is the first night, and the moms will share our child's story, their life, their passing, and everything in between. And that's really heavy. Really heavy. So the teens do something else, which is kind of neat, just to give you like a little bit of difference. The teens do a two truths and a lie with their
Okay.
mom. The moms are there, so the mom will kind of separate and be like, okay, let's tell two truths about my sibling, and then one that's not true, and then everybody gets to guess which one is
Mhm.
not true. So they get to learn a little bit about the sibling that passed, and it can be a little funny. And it's just we try to make each retreat specific to. It's almost like being a teacher where you have different students in
Right.
a classroom that you cater to their different needs. It's similar to our retreats where we, try to cater it to the different type of loss and grief pattern that each attendee's coming in through.
So, what do you do when you feel like you are experiencing a setback? You've been through all of these retreats and you've been through your lesson plans and you've been through all of the sessions that you have with the others. How do you apply that to yourself if you feel like, okay, you know what, today is not really a good day for me?
So it's interesting. It's been 13 years in my grief. So doing these definitely um, allows me to still acknowledge
Mhm.
that. It allows me to still I don't wanna say acknowledge it, but still work through it because I also feel like another thing that's not necessarily generational, but just all over is the length of loss for people after, 10 years or 15 years, whatever. It's like, oh, okay. Not that the world forgets, but the world moves on. And I have my own work setbacks, my own grief setbacks. The planning of these retreats, the planning of this nonprofit is again such a drive for me that's when I feel set back in either where it's with a nonprofit or with my own loss, my personality is just power
Mhm.
through and just keep going. And like currently this morning, I was booking Airbnbs for next summer, which is a difficult thing to have to deal with because I want a
Right.
house. But um, yeah, I mean, does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
no, absolutely, because I would imagine your conversations with your oldest, right, who was present
Mhm,
when Hayden was
mhm.
around, as opposed to your younger 2 who don't know him. So
Yes,
I can imagine maybe the conversations that you have with your children, I don't know, are they different?
they are. So again, like my grief's evolved, and it's interesting. I was just sharing. So this like a month ago now, almost August 16th was 13 years since we lost
Right.
Hayden, and I was talking to somebody in the last couple weeks about where my grief is now. It's a lot more centered around my oldest Jackson and his grief and how this has affected his life. We don't talk about it, him and I, as much anymore. We did when he was 3.5. When he became like 8, 9, 10, it became a lot more. He was digesting it. It was interesting. Like so many years had gone by, but he was just at
Right.
the age to be able to start processing the magnitude of it all. And so there's definitely a lot of conversation with him in the last few years. Last couple hasn't been as much. He's a teen, he's 16, he's holding stuff in. I know that it's affected his life in a lot of ways, and I think that's where a lot of my pain and grief come
Mhm.
from now is knowing that he's now processing and what it's gonna affect it's currently and will affect him forever as well, and that's painful. My younger 2 weren't here when
Right.
Hayden was here, but because we had the nonprofits very well established by then, Hayden is in every a household name for our family and a lot of others, but his pictures are everywhere. They're very well versed on, what we do for his nonprofits, his legacy. They come to the events we still have for Hayden's Heart. They come to Hayden's house when we have it. They help set things up. They're very in tune to what's happening. They know all of my close friends from there. They ask about their
Mhm.
families and, they know when we're celebrating one of their child's birthdays or passing days or honoring that. It is my children know the depths of of grief and pain, especially Jackson. He's witnessed me earlier on in my loss. I was still very close with other moms who had
Mhm.
children with heart defects and then had then passed. So he's witnessed that grief in me. So they definitely have different perspectives on it, but he is their brother. They
Right.
acknowledge that. And they'll go back and forth, like when they're in elementary school, they say, do a family portrait. It's not always consistent that Hayden's a part of it, and that's okay. It depends. I think it's sometimes not embarrassing, but then when they were younger, they didn't know how to share that with
Right.
others. Obviously, they don't have any friends who've lost, other than that it's
Mhm.
part of our community. They don't have any friends in school and things that have lost a sibling. So, that's another reason it's grateful we do for our alumni that have been to retreats. We host alumni events for them, and one is an annual families day, which is really beautiful. A lot of people come with their families, and the kids get to meet other kids who know this because it's very difficult for the siblings, obviously, as well. And so, it's neat that they get to build a community of their own too through it.
Wow. Remarkable. What do you say to someone, to a family who has just encountered the same loss? What initial words of encouragement do you have for them?
I would say be patient with yourself. You just want the pain to go away, so you want to find a magic wand to make it go away. I kept looking for a magic wand, and there isn't one. My heart always sinks when I learn of another family going through it because those first days, weeks, months, years are excruciating. Be patient with yourself. Allow yourself the time to grieve. Don't rush yourself through it. Don't expect to be performing anywhere near what you had been. Getting through that first few days, weeks, months, even years every day is a
Right.
shock. Every day you wake up, you're back into the shock of that did really happen to me. That did really happen to our family. After a year goes by, I know I can speak for myself and others that I've connected with through this. You wanna be over it, you think you should
Mhm.
be, because a lot of the world moves on after the first year, and that's tough, because for you, you never move on. It changes, your grief
Mhm.
changes, it evolves, you learn how to compartmentalize it. Yeah, you don't I mean, after the first year and a half, I was able to stop myself from crying in public and hold it until I was home, and then it will ebb and flow and change for sure, but be patient. That would be my biggest advice is just don't force yourself because somebody else makes you feel like you should be in a different place. It's amazingly tragic how many people I hear say what the outside world will give as advice, um, that don't know what this feels like. Allow yourself to grieve and respect if you're married, respect your spouse's grief pattern,
Right.
because it's very different. So many marriages end in divorce after a grief like this because the grief is so excruciating, but so different for each
Right.
one, and it can be very different for each person. Be patient and with your own grief and with your spouse's grief.
Addie, coming from a home that experienced this loss, though my sister and I, again, were never really involved in it. What you're doing now for others, obviously, in helping to heal yourself and Rob and Jackson and your family, what a legacy is beyond it's beyond beautiful. It really is.
Thank you. Thank you
So
so much.
before we go, I ask every guest the same question because I believe the stories we leave behind say so much about how we showed up in the world. So, Addie, I want you to tell me one story, big or small, that you hope people remember you for.
Mm. Hmm. Oh my goodness. One story, big or small? I story, huh.
Or a detail of your life or, you know,
Okay. Okay. All right. So I would say I would like people to remember me, my story. Um, I am a child of God. I am doing this for God's work. This is his mission for me. I am a mother and I am a wife, and I hope that I leave off the love that I have for Jesus, for my husband, for my children, but also to serve the grieving community.
you're You're a beautifully amazing, strong person, and I am honored to know you and I mean, I can go on and I'm gonna start crying again, so I'm not going to. I am so honored that you came here today, Addie, and that you shared everything with us and that you were part of the story today. And I want to
I'm so
thank
grateful.
you so much. And I want to thank everyone for tuning into this episode of Dawn of a Story. If you heard something today that moved you, made you laugh, made you think, please share it with someone you love. Please like and subscribe to the show. And if you're feeling brave, I'd love to hear your story by commenting below. It helps other story lovers find us too. If you want to reach out to Addie and Hayden's House of Healing, she can be reached through their website, haydenshouse.org. I will also put that in the show notes. Until next time, keep listening, keep sharing, and keep telling your story. Thank you, Addie, so much. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Thank you.